how religious do you think you are? Pretty interesting question, especially if you're like me and you grew up in church most of your whole entire life. Maybe it's a hard question to answer because as you would define it, well, I'm very religious. I attend church. Maybe I put money in the offering plate when it's passed. I give to missions. I try to do good to my neighbor. As far as I know, I'm a very religious person, and and that's kind of what defines my life. Maybe your neighbor thinks you're pretty religious as well because he sees your car pulling out of your driveway on Sunday mornings, and we feel pretty good about ourselves. But James has a way of cutting straight through the chase, and he has a way of cutting through all of our trappings of what we believe religion really is, and he gets down to the heart of it today. As he has been dealing with these people who are suffering and going through great persecution, these Jewish believers who are scattered all over the place, and they've had to run because of persecution, and they're going through difficulty. And it's almost as if he is saying, are you as religious as you think you are? And so he defines religion for us today. In verses 26 of chapter 1 through the end of the chapter, listen to what he says. He says, if anyone thinks himself to be religious, and yet he does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this man's religious is worthless. Wow, James, just attack us right off the bat, right? I mean, just go right for the jugular. What does he say? He says, look, if you think you're religious, let's take a little quiz. So let's see. Do you know how to bridle your tongue? Wow. James is going to take this topic and he's going to dig a little deeper later on in his letter. But do you know how to control that tongue of yours? Because if you claim to be a religious person and you don't know how to control your tongue, then James says you deceive yourself. You're tricked, you're fooled. You're not religious at all because you can't even control the words that come out of your mouth. Man, this is just immediately convicting because I think many times we can become very careless of the words that come out of our mouth, especially those people who we know love us, people that we know are our family, people that we know the real us. We put on a show at church and we call that religion, right? That show that we put on. We would never go after the lady that sits in front of us like we go after our husband. Because I wouldn't want her to know that's who I am. We would never go after those kids that I work with in my Sunday school class like I go after my own kids. I would never call them the names that I call them. I would never respond that way because we won't want anybody to know that this is what's really in my heart. And as the Bible tells us, the things that are in our heart come out the mouth. And we reveal who we really are and what we're really thinking going on in here. And so James says, don't even claim to be religious. If you can't get your own tongue and your own words under control, because there's no maturity there, there's no spiritual maturity there, there's no wisdom there. There's a person who is all focused on themselves and they're focused on lashing out. Sometimes we're focused on being right, being the person who says the last words, who gets that last word in. I just want you to know I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm going to stick with this until you get it. Boy, if that sounds like you or somebody you know, then there's no excuse. James says, you're deceived if you believe that you are truly a follower of Jesus Christ, that you are a follower of God's Word. You're deceived if you think you are this person because you show up to church or because you put money in an offering plate. Who you really are, what really defines you, is not where you go on Sunday or how much money you put in the plate on Sunday. What defines you is what comes out your mouth, James says. And what's going on like that in your life? But man, if you think he's done, he's not. Because he goes on a little further. And he says, this man's religion is worthless. It's worthless. Your testimony is worthless if you even have one. The words that you say, don't go to work and try to share the gospel with somebody when they know what comes out of your mouth most of the time. Don't go to school and suddenly decide to, say a few religious words. Yeah, I'm a Christian, this is who I am. And yet they know what you say In the locker room, they know what you say when no one else is around and there's just your buddies, and they hear the words that come out of your mouth. Your religion, James says, is worthless if this is who you are. But then James would go on, as he often does, as he takes one thing and he says, this is not it, he immediately turns around and says, this is it. So if you're really sincere right now, if you're like, you know what, wow, this is really hitting my heart, Reba, because I can see this in my own life, and you're really sincere about being different, then he says, okay, you want to know what it is? I've told you what it's not. Let me tell you what it is. And so now he's going to define it for us. Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. You want to know what pure religion is? Undefiled religion? Do you want to know what God would define as religion? You care more about other people than you care about yourself. You're reaching out to those who can do nothing for you in return. To the widows and to the orphans who have nothing to give you back. There's no you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. There's none of that. They have nothing to give you back. But you see their need and you speak into that need and you give, expecting nothing in return. James says, if that's you, then before God, you're a person who he would define as a follower, one who he would define as one who is religious, one who you should call a Christian. James would go on and he would say, not just to visit those widows and those orphans, but he would go further and he would say to keep oneself unstained by the world. So stay holy. In all of your life's pursuits, stay holy. So there's these two things. He just lays them out there. He said, this is what it is. Care more about those who cannot help themselves than you care about yourself. Get out there, and when you see people in distress, give, do. Be there for them. And keep yourself unstained from the world. Be holy. Be helpful. Be holy. And then you can say, you know what? I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ. Because my actions and my words, they line up. They line up in my life. And I wonder if yours line up today. As you think about how you conduct yourself in your own home, how you conduct yourself at work, how you conduct yourself with family and friends, the words that fly out of your mouth, how much you care about those who can do nothing in return for you at all, how much you're willing to give with no expectation of return. This is how God defines it. Where are you at in areas of holiness? Do you even care about that? You know, are we just looking to maybe score like a 4 or 5 on the holiness quotient? You know, I think God will be happy with that. You know, I'm not a 10, but hey, surely he doesn't expect a 10. He does. I think many of us maybe should stop calling ourselves Christians. We should stop calling ourselves followers of Christ. If we don't fit the definition of what Christ says is truly a follower of him. These are challenging words that I've reflected on quite often. And my hope today is you think about where you're at personally. You'll just meditate on these thoughts. Where are you really at? Tell yourself the truth today. Be honest. And if you've got something to confess and to deal with God, get with God. Get before him and cry out before him and say, God, you know who I really am. You know where I'm really at. Maybe there's some people that you need to go to and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I have used my words to tear you to pieces. And I was wrong. Maybe you need to start worrying less about what you can get back and maybe what you can give. I don't know where you're at today, but let these words drill down deep into our hearts. Because remember, these words were not spoken to those who were sitting on yachts, reclining in the sun. These very words were spoken to people who were in distress themselves, who were under great duress. And James says, it doesn't matter whether you are perfectly wonderful or your life is flipping upside down. These are still the principles of truth. Keep yourself holy and care about other people and speak into their lives in every opportunity that you can. And God will do what? He will bless. And then I can call myself a Christian.